Hey everybody, it's Drewski McGillicuddy, and I think I might sort of have this figured out. But we are gathered here today to talk about a movie from probably one of the best years in cinema history, 1994. And it's a movie that, flew under a lot of people's radar because it was such a great year for film with, films like Forrest Gump, Pulp Fiction, the list goes on. But one movie that a lot of people might not even know exists or remember at all is a little film from a director called Richard. It's a little film from a director. His name's Richard Donner? Oh my God! From director Richard Donner. Did I say that right? I don't know. He's the guy that brought you Superman and the Lethal Weapon series. And this movie came out in between a couple of the Lethal Weapons, and that's Mavrick. I'll just get to the point. It's Mavrick from 1994, starring Mel Gibson, what's her name, Jodie Foster, and that guy that played the original Maverick, James Garner, who's been in such classics as The Notebook. Anyway, Mavrick tells the story of Brett Maverick. He's a professional gambler, and he's got to get to this poker party on this big old riverboat. Big wheel that keep on turning, proud Maverick keep on burning. Anyway, don't worry about that. So we start the movie out, and he's kind of in a predicament where, he's tied in a noose with his hands behind his back to his horse, and there's a rattlesnake. I don't know if I can show you, because apparently if I'm doing this on my computer, my YouTube downloader doesn't work. But maybe there's a picture of it. Who knows? But this is what a rattlesnake looks like. So imagine there you are in the middle of the desert, tied to a tree by your neck, riding your horse, and horses are afraid of snakes. So you can imagine. But we start the story out there, but then he goes back and starts it out telling us how he got into that predicament. He's playing a card game, and these guys come. Don't worry about it, all right? Just worry about the fact that this is... Oh, God. See, this is why I can't make videos anymore. So we cut back to Mel Gibson, and he's checking into this hotel, and there's a card game going on. He sits down. He wants to play cards, but this Spaniard guy, played by Alfred Modine or some shit like that. What the fuck's his name? Alfred Molina, the guy that would later on play Dr. Octopus. He plays the Spaniard, and, he don't like Maverick too much. He don't want him butting in his card game, so he tells him, I don't want you playing here. And he's like, well, let me tell you, I'll sit here, and I'll lose for an hour straight. Okay, so he sits there, and he loses for an hour straight just so that he can sit there and play this card game. And then Jodie Foster's sitting there, and she is, like, drop-dead gorgeous. Like, this is probably... Oh my God, she's just so goddamn irresistible in this movie, if you will. I think Mel Gibson even tells her that somewhere along the lines of the movie. Anyway, so she's playing, and then it's these other guys, and then there's this Billy the Kid wannabe looking dude, and he kind of looks like a young Tom Hardy, but I can't really put my... Don't worry about it. Anyway, so that guy, he starts running his mouth, and people running their mouth, and then the next thing you know, these guys come in, they wanting to whoop some ass. Mel Gibson goes out, or Brett Maverick. I'm sorry. Brett Maverick goes outside, and he takes care of all these guys. Where the hell were we? Something about, they was sitting around playing cards. The Spaniard talk about Mel Gibson's cheating, because I mentioned, after the hour of him losing, he goes to playing cards. See, because for the hour that he was sitting there, he was getting everybody's tells, like people that, like, tapped their teeth or hold their breath when they're bluffing. Anyway, he's sitting around, he's figuring out everybody's game and how they're doing things. And he said that oh my God. He says that he'll fucking sit there for an hour and lose. But he said once he starts playing, he never cheats, and he hardly ever bluffs. Okay. So they're playing a hand, and the Spaniard gets mad and looks at his cards, even though he didn't pay to see the cards. And he said, I thought you never bluff. And he said, no, I bluff every once in a while. I said I hardly ever bluff. And I never cheat. Bunch of hombres bust through the door and talk about they's gonna whoop Maverick's ass before Angel, the Spaniard, has a chance to whoop his ass because he was gonna whoop his ass. So Maverick's out there and he's taking his belt off. He tells these kids, like, hey, if it looks like I'm done for, just shoot me. And so he goes and he just starts whooping ass. And rights. He's throwing lefts, smacking bitches, and calling them hoes. And this goes on for about 5 minutes, all right? And then he goes back inside, and he goes to sit down and play the cards, but he's like, wait a minute, somebody called me a cheater. Who was it? Was it you? Was it you? Talking to Angel, the Spaniard. And he says, no, I never said that. Anyway, don't worry about it. They all sit back down. They have a wonderful card game, and Jodie Foster's kind of eyeing Maverick. God damn it! I don't even remember what her name is, but it doesn't matter, okay? Because after the card game, she goes upstairs and she's all trying to be all flirty and shit, and she steals his wallet. I mean, what a wonderful start to a relationship is to steal somebody's wallet. I mean, I don't even know why I'm sitting here telling you verbatim the entire movie, but that's kind of what I do, okay? All right? I don't really review the movies. I just tell you scene for scene what happens, and you don't have to take my word for it because it's not as good as you sitting down and watching it yourself. But anyway, twice she tries to steal his wallet, and for that, he has her clean his shirt, which I don't know why I'm telling you this. It's just part of the movie because she brings the shirt back and it doesn't fit anymore. It's a fancy shirt, okay? It was made in France. You know how hard it is to get. You can't just go to your local general store because it's like 1892. Okay, Google. What time period does Maverick from 1994 take place?
Here are some results from a search.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate that. Anyway, it's the times when everybody wore a gun on their fucking hip and there was riverboat gambling. Maverick going around from town to town collecting debts that's owed to him because he needs this money to buy in to a riverboat gambling trip, which is going to be for like $500,000. And $500,000 back then was probably a couple $1,000,000 in today's money. And then there is a wonderful scene where he goes to the bank to get the banker. He knows the banker. He's friends with the banker. He comes in, pretends to rob the place. And then, they find out that you're joking. And then next thing you know, it comes talking about he's trying to rob the place. He's like, I told you it was a joke. Nope, turns out they're actually robbing the place. And it's funny because it's Danny Glover, who is, his co-star in Lethal Weapon. Mel Gibson's co-star, blah, 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 blah. So there's this funny back and forth where, the robber comes in, he takes all the money, and the banker was telling Maverick that he didn't have, what he owed him. He said he's cleaned out, and then here's this big old stacks that are on decks that he hands over to the bank robber, who's played by Danny Glover, like I said, and then there's this funny back and forth where they look at each other. He pulls down his bandana. He pulls down his bandana and sees that it's Danny Glover, and they give each other the look like, wait a minute, I know you. So that's kind of funny because Richard Donner directed the Lethal Weapon movies and Danny Glover and fucking just blah, 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 right? Then he ends up stuck with Jodie Foster's character because she tries to get away after she shrinks his shirt, and then James Garner is there on the stagecoach. They get on the stagecoach, right? The stagecoach. And there's this old guy, okay? He's really, really old, and they ask him, like, are you feeling all right? And he says, why does everybody always ask me that? Well, I'll tell you why everybody always asks him that. Because half mile down the fucking road, the motherfucker dies. He's fucking dead. Fucking dead guy. Driving the carriage. So Mel Gibson, being the strapping young lad he is at the time, he has to crawl onto the roof and try to get to the driver's seat so that he can stop the horses. And he gets no help from Jodie Foster. What the fuck is her goddamn name? I don't know. You know what? I don't think they actually tell you what her real name is because she's like a con artist and she's constantly trying to con somebody. But it doesn't matter because she's just so goddamn gorgeous in this movie. Did I mention that? So anyway, James Garner don't want to help because there's something wrong with the wheel, but there's nothing wrong with the wheel. So Mavrick's out there risking his life to try to stop this, to save these two assholes that he barely knows, which, you know, come to find out later that that's not necessarily true. He gets up there and he stops the horses just in time to stop from flying over a fucking cliff. But he almost goes over the cliff, and then he's so mad at, what the hell was his name? Bert? See, because his name's Brett. The marshal guy. He's the marshal guy, right? That's who the guy is. James Garner's playing the marshal guy. So he's hanging on for dear life over the cliff, and he tells them all to get away from him. He don't want their help because, you know, the time for them to help has passed. But then, you know, he can't get up, so he is going to die. So he does need their help. So he calls back to help. Blah blah. Go on their merry way, and they come across these women who were going to start a mission, and they had been robbed by engines. But it turns out it wasn't really engines. It was a bunch of guys disguised as engines. So Mavrick tries to work out a deal with them because he needs this money. He's looking for this money so that he can go to this boat because he got to go play poker. So he tells these women, if I could get this money back for you, can I get 10% of it as a finder's fee? And they're like, sure. Because, you know, Mel Gibson, you know, he's a good tracker, even though, you know, Mavrick, he's a good tracker. Disguised as engines. They get the money back, but then, you know, Mavrick, once he has the money in his hand, kind of has a change of heart because he can't take this money from these women that are trying to start this mission. So he gives the money back. And then here comes these actual real live engines. But little do we know, Mel Gibson's buddy with the chief, and they give this little back and forth and make it seem like they're going to take him as sacrifice so that they don't slaughter everyone there. Which, you know, it's a pretty amusing moment in the film, if you ask me. So he goes along with Chief Joseph, and Chief Joseph owes him $1,000. Talks about he ain't got it. Maybe he owes him $2,000, but he ain't got it. And then it's back and forth and blah blah blah. There's this Russian guy and he's hunting. So he figures he can squander the money that he owes Mavrick out of this guy by letting him hunt a real live engine. But the only way he's gonna, you know, mess with his gun. But since he couldn't mess with his gun, he has him shoot his bow. It messes with his hand. Like, why am I sitting here telling you the whole damn thing? Don't worry about it. This is how we do here on the Drewski McGillicuddy channel. You know, he shoots the engine, he gets his money, and he's finally got enough to get on the boat. And he gets to the boat, and he finds Jodie Foster, and she doesn't have enough to get on the boat. So luckily, he happens to see the Russian guy, and he says, hey, I'm with, you know, the Engine Wildlife Foundation, and we've heard that you killed an engine. So he gets $4,000 as a bribe, and then he has to get off the boat. Here I am telling you. But it all comes down to, like, all these people putting $25,000 into a chest, and then they's gonna play poker on the riverboat. And then, you know, obviously there's people that are caught cheating, and they get their ass thrown over to they, like, you know, they walk the plank. They basically walk the plank, so to speak. And then there's people that are not only caught cheating, there's people with guns, because at the beginning of the tournament, Marshall goes and lets everybody know that his 2 guns are the only guns permitted on the boat. And then they got this fancy safe that they put all the money in, and it's guarded real well, and then, you know, they commence to play in the poker. And then, as you would, you know, the 5 main characters in the movie end up that are actually playing the poker that you'll meet along the way, blah blah blah. You know, the Angel's there, Jodie Foster's there, Mavrick's there, the guy that's on the boat, the boat owner, He's like the corporal or something like that. He's there. And they all play this, 25 different people, and then it comes down to 5 people. And then did I mention there's a steamy romantic scene with Jodie Foster and Mel Gibson? It's just lovely. It's wonderful. So romantic. And, they play the game, and the movie's called Mavrick. He's our main character, so you would think he'd win the whole thing, right? Well, sure enough, he does, but not before Angel gets pissed off and tries to kill him. But then, he gets killed. Are we doing the play-by-play? I guess we are. But yeah, then some other stuff happens with the money because, they don't want to give it to Maverick. So the money... but I'm not going to tell you because I'm just not going to tell you because I guarantee you some of you probably have never seen this movie, let alone heard of it. So if you can find it, which I've never seen it anywhere, I just happen to have anywhere streaming. I've never seen a Blu-ray copy, and I've actually never seen another DVD copy out in the wild. This is the only copy I've ever seen, and I got this from Blockbuster when they were going out of